Welcome to Mission Minute News. I'm Dominican Sister Jean Harris. A single question that astounded one woman and changed history is, why do you seek the living among the dead? Why do we think that things are hopeless? Why do we give in to resignation and failure? Easter is the feast of tombstones taken away, hopes rekindled, and failure changed into victory. God takes away even the hardest stones against which our hopes and expectations crash: death, sin, fear, pandemic. Human history does not end before a tombstone, because today it encounters the living stone, the risen Jesus. We, the Church, are built on Jesus, who makes all things new, gives us hope, light, and life. We wish you all a happy Easter. Now the headlines. No blessing of same-sex unions. Crystalbalas Colony. St. Joseph, a realtor? Timor celebrates Women's Day. Vandalism prompts forgiveness. And Bible Center inaugurated. No blessing of same-sex unions. The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith says no to the possibility of imparting a blessing to unions of same-sex couples, noting, however, that this does not imply a judgment on persons involved. The Church simply does not have the power to bless such unions. So a blessing of this kind by a priest could not be considered licit, according to the congregation in its response to a dubium that had been presented. The CDF says Pope Francis gave his assent to this response, and an accompanying explanatory note signed by Prefect Cardinal Luis Ladaria and Secretary Archbishop Giacomo Morandi was published in an article of commentary on the Responsum ad Dubium. The document situates its response within the context of the Church's sincere desire to welcome and accompany homosexual persons to whom are proposed paths of growth in faith, as expressed in the 2016 Apostolic Exhortation Amoris Laetitia, which speaks of the assistance those who manifest a homosexual orientation, need to understand and fully carry out God's will in their lives. Here we see a clear distinction between persons and union. Saying no to the blessing of a union does not, in fact, imply a judgment regarding the individuals involved, who must be welcomed with respect, compassion, and sensitivity, avoiding every sign of unjust discrimination, as declared in previous Church documents. The reasoning goes like this: relationships, even stable ones, that involve sexual activity outside of marriage, that is, the indissoluble union of a man and a woman open to the transmission of life, go counter to the designs of God, even if positive elements are present in those relationships. In fact, this applies to any sexual activity outside of matrimony. Further, blessing same-sex unions could promote a mistaken parallel with the nuptial blessing of matrimony. Crystalbalas Colony. The people of Aulia village in Madhya Pradesh, central India, installed the statue of Sister Crystalbalas Theodora Sikdris, SSPS, on her birthday, March 2nd, this year, in their leprosy colony. Around 100 people participated in this unusual and touching ceremony. The statue was carried to her grave site and, after a brief prayer service, brought in procession to the church to celebrate the Eucharist. Finally, the statue was installed in the colony where the families of people cured and healed from leprosy live. Many SSPS sisters, local leaders, and villagers participated in the ceremonies. Sister Crystalbalas arrived in India from Germany in 1951. For several years, she worked as a nurse in a Khandwa nursing home begun by the SSPS missionaries in 1936. Hearing of the terrible disease of leprosy in nearby districts, she chose to join in helping these people who were considered one of the most dreaded and marginalized parts of society. Crystalbalas began by establishing a leprosy health care center in the village of Aulia in 1965. In solidarity with the people, she faced the hardships of non-acceptance and even stoning because of the stigma attached to leprosy. She fought for the education of the children of those families and always supported and served the patients with compassion. She died of cancer on December 9th, 1990. Inspired by her heroism and dedication, the sisters have treated thousands of leprosy patients, rehabilitating many back into society. During the commemorative ceremonies, Rajan, one of the participants who personally experienced the work of Sister Crystalbalas, said, "She was a quiet but dedicated missionary who is not very known to the world. However, she is alive in the hearts and minds of every leprosy patient whom she served with great love and care." He then announced that thereafter the village would be named Crystalbalas Colony. Saint Joseph, a realtor? Did you know that Saint Joseph, the carpenter father of our Lord Jesus and husband to Mary, the Virgin Mother, is unofficially the patron saint of real estate? Those who are selling properties can enlist Saint Joseph to help, not just by praying on their knees, but by burying a statue of the saint in the yard of the for sale property. A strange ritual. This folklore, whose origin is unknown, is also confusing regarding specifics. Some say the statue must be buried upside down, near the for sale sign, facing the road, or in a flower bed, etc. Despite the confusion, when the property sells, it is thanks to Saint Joseph. A website, stjosephstatue.com, is dedicated to the practice with its mission to help all believers to sell their houses. Amazon sells a handy kit, which includes a small statue with directions and a prayer card. Father Donald Calloway of the Congregation of Marian Fathers of the Immaculate Conception, also the author of Consecration to Saint Joseph, The Wonders of Our Spiritual Father, said that statues, unlike medals, are not made to be buried. Statues represent a person and are meant to be venerated above ground, not buried in the ground. Furthermore, he said, such a practice is akin to treating a statue of Saint Joseph as a talisman or a good luck charm. Saint Joseph is your spiritual father, not a trinket. Father Tom Margavicius of the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, said that the practice smacks of superstition, not faith. Father Tom asks, what makes people think it would happen faster if they do a St. Joseph thing than if they just talk to God about it? Do I not trust in God's care for me and doing what He knows is best for me? For Catholics who really believe the statue would influence the course of events, Margavicius advises a soul search and perhaps a conversation with a spiritual director or other faith mentor about what stands in their way of trusting God's providence. And when selling or buying a house, rather than turning to a superstition, even if it means it's in good fun, Catholics should make their petition known to God. Earnest prayer for St. Joseph's intercession wouldn't hurt, of course. In his apostolic letter, Patris Corde, A Father's Heart, Pope Francis described St. Joseph as a beloved, tender, loving, obedient, accepting, creatively courageous Father. Let us place St. Joseph's statue in a place where we can remember his goodness, a father who in the middle of the night had to lead his family from Bethlehem to Egypt to keep the child Jesus and his mother safe. In this year of St. Joseph, we ask him to pray for us. Timor celebrates Women's Day. On March 8, 2021, the SSPS-run vocational school Kasuma in Atambua, Timor, currently serving 154 girls and 4 boys, celebrated International Women's Day in a very meaningful way. It was a day to celebrate the accomplishments of the women who are its teachers, mentors, and students. Women empowerment, living a dignified life, is the mission of the school, so they accommodate more girls, the majority of them from poor families. COVID-19 required the students to stay home for almost 8 months, doing assignments from the teachers through WhatsApp with follow-up home visits. Those with poor or unaffordable internet connection were visited regularly by the teachers. All forms of class were challenging, especially those requiring handcrafting skills. Preparatory to final exams, students, especially 12th graders, had been allowed in-person skill accompaniment by their teachers to produce their final projects, such as wedding gowns, jackets with cultural weaving modification, traditional woven skirts and blouses, or different design dresses for bride and bridegroom. With each student making his or her own design and woven fabric, they collectively produced a total of 159 items. The day's celebrations included a wonderful exhibition of their works. Parents expressed deep gratitude to the sisters and teachers for their hard work and dedication, even amid the pandemic. One parent has already organized facilities for her daughter to begin a home industry as a tailor and boutique designer. Sister Aloysia spoke for the group. We express our deep gratitude and joy for celebrating this International Women's Day by witnessing hope for the families in this time of COVID-19 pandemic. I conclude my sharing with the words of Mother Teresa, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." Vandalism prompts forgiveness. 2 days after the desecration of 16 statues on the grounds of the Basilica of Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Youngstown, Ohio, parishioners gathered for Mass on February 28th expressed deep sorrow, but also forgiveness for the perpetrator. That very day, Youngstown police, with the help of surveillance video, had apprehended suspect Caleb Van Kampen, 20, of East Palestine, Ohio, who reportedly confessed to the vandalism. Van Kampen's arraignment on March 1st received extensive coverage by media, including the Catholic Exponent newspaper. prompting much community concern. Despite heartbreak and outrage on the part of parishioners like Paul Amon and religious ed director Therese Ivinson, concern quickly moved to prayer for the young man. What has he experienced in his life that would drive him to commit such an act? And what can we do as a community to help bring about healing? Therese said. The vandalism included 2 granite statues that were decapitated and imported fiberglass statues that were smashed, reported Monsignor Michael Carillo, rector of the parish. Of course, the money is not the real loss, Monsignor noted, but rather the tragic desecration. Still, he called for forgiveness and healing, noting that members of Van Kampen's family had called him to express their remorse for his action. Youngstown Diocese officials, Bishop David Bonnar and Monsignor Robert Sifrin, Diocesan Vicar General, visited the parish the day of the vandalism. This really cuts to the heart of who we are and what we stand for, Bishop Bonnar said. It's truly an attack on the heart and soul of the people when their faith is not respected, Monsignor Sifrin agreed. It is all the more shocking because we live in a valley where there's such respect for diversity and respect for faith. Monsignor Carillo compares the Basilica of Mount Carmel to the mount on which Jesus was transfigured. He urges Catholics to testify to the light of Christ, who alone can dispel the darkness that prevails in the world. Bible Center inaugurated. The Arnaldus Family Bible Center in Indonesia was inaugurated on the occasion of the Feast of St. Arnold Jansen recently. It is a joint project of the SVD Ruteng Province and the SSPS West Flores Province. Although the ceremony was restricted by COVID-19, the formal blessing of the center, located at the Provincial House, was given by the Bishop of Ruteng Diocese, Monsignor Ciprianos Hormat. According to Provincial Father Paulus Tolo, SVD, the Bible Center is a concrete implementation of the theme of the 18th General Chapter, rooted in the Word, committed to his mission. He regarded the creation of the Bible Center, encouraged by Bishop Ciprianus, as a milestone in the province's history. During the dedication, the bishop expressed his appreciation to the SVD and SSPS and reminded those present that to preach the word means to preach the commandments of love. He emphasized the center's role in making the Bible more familiar and alive for everyone and promised diocesan support for the center's programs. First woman to head Vatican Biblical Commission. On March 9, 2021, Pope Francis appointed Spanish biblical scholar Sister Nuria Calduc Benages as Secretary of the Pontifical Biblical Commission, the Vatican office of which she has been a member since 2014. Sister Nuria has dedicated her life passionately to the study of the Bible. She teaches Old Testament at the Pontifical Gregorian University and is a renowned expert on sacred scripture. A native of Barcelona, Spain, Sister Nuria is a member of the Congregation of the Missionary Daughters of the Holy Family of Nazareth. She also took part in the work of the Study Commission on the Diaconate of Women in 2016 to 2019. Siempre adelante, hermana. SVD helps recovering COVID-19 patients. The Divine Word Seminary in Torresendo in Colvija, Diocese of Guarda, Portugal, will open its doors as a backup structure for recovering COVID-19 patients. Father Devendra Bhuiya, SVD, rector of the seminary, announced that this is a substantial gesture to show solidarity in the face of the pandemic. He added, "We are available for any help, and we must be in solidarity. We must be more sensitive and be collaborators in the human cause, the social cause, as we have already done elsewhere, and now in Tortosendo." The seminary infrastructure, with its fully equipped 2 floors, can receive 30 patients. The University Hospital Center, Cova de Beira, is asking for volunteers and contacting retired professionals who can help in this outpatient support unit. 7 Divine Word priests who live in the Tortosendo Seminary, including one preparing to leave for the Amazon, are motivated and hopeful that better, healthier times will come with everybody's collaboration. Young missionary offers death for others. Teresita Castillo de Diego, a 10-year-old girl in Spain, fulfilled her dream of becoming a Catholic missionary from her hospital bed shortly before dying from a brain tumor. Teresita died on March 7th in Madrid after a prolonged illness. Father Angel Camino Lamela, Episcopal Vicar of the Archdiocese of Madrid for La Paz Hospital, was offering Mass at the hospital on February 11 when chaplains there suggested he visit a seriously ill girl who had an operation scheduled for the next day to remove a brain tumor. The girl told the priest she loved Jesus very much and wanted to be a missionary. Father Camino, deeply moved by her words, made necessary arrangements and promised that he would make her a missionary of the church on that very day. Later that morning at the vicariate, Father Camino produced the official document naming Teresita as a missionary, and in the evening presented it to her along with a missionary cross. Teresita had her mother hang the cross by her hospital bed where she could see it, saying, "Tomorrow I'll take it to the operating room. I'm a missionary now." Her mother said Teresita was adopted from Siberia and came to Spain when she was 3 years old. From a young age, she exhibited a strong spiritual life. She used to attend Mass daily at her school in Madrid, run by the Daughters of Holy Mary of the Heart of Jesus. The tumor in Teresita's brain was first discovered in 2015. The initial treatment with surgery and chemotherapy was successful. But in 2018, however, the tumor began growing again, and the young girl had to undergo another operation and treatment in Switzerland. In January 2021, she returned to the hospital with severe headaches. She entrusted herself to Blessed Carlos Acutis and Venerable Montse Graces. Her mother said Teresita's strong faith helped her through her situation. As she had offered up her sufferings, the thought came to me that Jesus was making use of them to save more and more souls. The young girl had said, "I'm offering it up for the people. For instance, for someone who is ill, for the priests." Fukushima's 10th anniversary. 10 years ago, on March 11th, a magnitude 9.0 earthquake under the ocean off the coast of Japan triggered a disaster at a Fukushima nuclear power plant, which killed over 15,000 people and displaced 150,000, the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Over 40,000 people are evacuees to this day. Japan's Catholic bishops have marked the anniversary by praying for the dead and promising that the Church's reconstruction efforts in the region would continue. The Catholic Church in Japan is not limited to material support, but will continue to walk in the bonds of solidarity with the people of Tohoku as friends, brothers and sisters, a solidarity that spreads around the world to raise our horizon and our hope, the bishop said in a March 11 statement. Immediately after the disaster, the Catholic Church in Japan established a Center for Reconstruction Assistance in the Diocese of Sendai, which covers the affected area with the motto, "A New Creation," pledging that all 16 of the country's dioceses would work together to provide assistance. The bishops thanked volunteers and international supporters who have contributed to the effort. In the face of damage far greater than we could have imagined, many people, not only in Japan, but from all over the world, rushed to support us. Caritas Japan received financial and reconstruction support from Caritas organizations around the world, as well as donations from many people in Japan. Fundraising activities were carried out for years after the earthquake, expanding the circle of goodwill. During his visit to Japan in November 2019, Pope Francis told the people from the disaster-stricken area, "No one rebuilds by himself or herself. Nobody can start over alone. We have to find a friendly and fraternal hand capable of helping to raise not just a city, but also our horizon and our hope." The Japanese bishops also renewed their call, first made in 2011, to abolish all nuclear power plants in an effort to protect life. Unfortunately, we feel that over time the situation is moving in a different direction from this call, the bishops said. At that time, we engraved on our hearts the importance of helping each other, the importance of solidarity to protect life. Now, 10 years after the great earthquake and tsunami, the world surely needs to think about that importance, they said. The 3 nuclear reactors at the Fukushima plant still need constant cooling with water which then becomes radioactive. Catholic bishops of both Japan and Korea have criticized the Japanese government's plans to release millions of gallons of that water into the sea. Treatment of the water is still being tested to eliminate its effects linked to stillbirth, Down syndrome, and childhood leukemia. Other possibilities for disposal are storage in tanks or solidification in mortar. The bishops are adamant. We have a responsibility to hand over to future generations a global environment where we can truly live safely. Crispr, a moral issue? Here's a footnote to a story we reported on March 1st about pesticides considered as a moral issue, then not only because, according to researchers, some of them kill both the targeted pests and pollinating insects, possibly causing food insecurity issues, but also for their possible direct adverse effect on humans in terms of weakening the immune system. Add to that another, broader scientific approach to the pesticide issue, which involves using genetic modification tools like the increasingly reliable and popular Crispr, genome editing technology. For your notebooks, the definition of that acronym is the following: clustered, regularly interspaced, short, palindromic repeats, Crispr. The only part of that I understand is the palindromic part. A palindrome is a word, number, phrase, or other sequence of characters which reads the same backward as forward, such as the word madame or race car. In the case of gene editing, we're talking about DNA sequences in the genomes or genetic makeup of organisms. Applied to plants or their insect pests, Crispr is capable of changing the genetic makeup of either the pest or the plant in such a way as to alter or eliminate a targeted problem. Sounds a little like playing God, doesn't it? And yes, that's the technology rampant in sci-fi media that projects so-called designer babies, putting Crispr squarely in the arena of playing God. What are your thoughts? A rocky mission story. Father Lawrence Muti, SVD, from Kenya, Tanzania province, now shares with us a slice of his rocky missionary life. Last week, I went to visit and pray with parishioners in the remote village of Lungung, 66 kilometers from the parish house. The catechist was waiting for me in another village, 45 kilometers away, to guide me as the usual road had become impassable from the rains, which can prevent visits by a priest for up to 6 months. The sticky black cotton soil makes it very hard for a car to navigate, even a 4x4. On the way, a woman asked for a lift to her relative's home near where we were going, about 15 kilometers through bush, which includes many seasonal rivers with large rocks and no bridges. This was her lucky day. Normally, she would spend half the day walking and not be able to go back until the following day. We dropped her on the way and proceeded to the village and had a seminar before the celebration of the Holy Eucharist. I had also brought some wood and nails to straighten the top of the mud altar. When they built it, they had no clue, so they built it slanted like the ambo, making it quite a challenge to place anything on it. Afterward, we had lunch at one of the boma, or homes. Then, after blessing the house, the cattle shed, and the compound, Simeon, one of the few young men of the church, volunteered to escort me back to a point from which I would not get lost, because the catechist was remaining in the village to visit the small Christian communities. On the way, we found the same woman waiting, as planned, to go back to her village. When we reached the rocky river, the axle bar on the car got stuck on one big rock, so the wheels were spinning in the air. We all pushed and pulled, but much of our effort proved futile. Luckily, I had a machete in the car with which I could cut a big stick to hit the rock off the axle. Finally, out of the river and about a kilometer away, the woman handed me some money, saying it had fallen from my pocket when I was bending under the car in the river. 50,000 shillings, or about $20. This would be enough to buy an average goat at the village market, or provide food for a family of 6 for a week. The money actually had been given by a widow back in the village in thanksgiving to God for her recovery from illness. I was at a loss for words. This gesture reminded me that honesty is a value instilled in a person from where one grows up, a cultural value that has been greatly eroded in society today, and the cause of many societal problems which challenge parents, teachers, and religious leaders to re-inculcate it in our children. The next day, I visited another village called Numoton. 42 kilometers from the parish, where I met children who demonstrated a great sense of responsibility from a very young age. These angels, ranging from 8 to 10 years of age, came early to clean the church and repair the holes made by ants. In this village, the children do not go to school because the closest school is 12 kilometers away across the forest. After Mass, I spoke with some men in the village about how we can build at least a single classroom to begin a nursery school. They asked me to find a donor for the project, but I asked them to go ahead and start, and later we can find the resources we need. I hope this will help them value the education of their children, which is surely needed. If you have a comment or question, please email us at missionminutenews@wordnet.tv. You can also post your comments below each video on YouTube. We promise to respond. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon. Share with others about the channel and the variety of programs you enjoy there. This is Mission Minute News. Until we meet again, stay safe and have a very happy Easter.